Rupert, I've heard you mention very briefly before, I think on the last retreat here, about freedom within one-to-one intimate relationships. And I understand what you meant on one level. I do understand what you meant, but I've been pondering it quite a lot recently, and I'd like you to share more about this if you're willing.
You see, freedom within an intimate relationship.
Holding each other in freedom within an intimate relationship. So I guess it's about integrating the teachings into one-to-one intimate relationships, and what freedom means to you within the body-mind's engagement with another body-mind.
It means giving your companion complete freedom to do whatever he or she pleases. Not that their freedom depends on your permission, but it means having the attitude of giving the other total freedom. You have no right to control them or dictate how they behave in any way at all. Of course, by the same token, you are also free. So, if you don't like their behavior, you're free to leave. But you don't stay together because you have imposed on each other a set of rules and regulations and expectations. You leave each other totally free. You like to be left totally free. You don't like to have someone controlling you. None of us do. And therefore, you can be sure that your companion doesn't like to be controlled or dictated to either. So, if you have that attitude in a relationship, then the only reason for staying together is because you really want to be together. You really love each other. Doesn't mean to say that there are not difficulties in the relationships. There are difficulties in all relationships, but you really want to be together. That's the only reason for being together. Not because of any expectation or demand. So yes, give your companion total freedom. It's not yours to give. Freedom is already theirs, but feel that in yourself. Give your partner freedom to do whatever she wants, go wherever she goes, stay with you, leave you, sleep with other people if she wants to. Why shouldn't she? It's her freedom. Of course, you don't have to stay with her if you don't like it. And chances are that if you both really love each other dearly and enjoy each other's company, there won't be much impulse to go off sleeping with other people, because one only tends to do that in a relationship if you're not satisfied with the companion that you're with. But your staying together, your being together, will be, your bond will just be a bond of love, and the enjoyment you have in each other's company. It won't be dictated by shoulds and shouldn'ts.
So really there's an absence of agreements, except for the agreements to be honest, obviously, and not to intentionally harm.
You can't impose the demand to be honest on your companion. That's her freedom to be honest or not. But if you want to live the teaching yourself, then that is, your honesty is an inevitable consequence. So you impose that. You don't impose it on yourself, but you demand that of yourself. You want to live the teaching. You want to be open. You want to be honest. So you demand that of yourself. But don't demand it of your companion. Of course, if she's not open and she's not honest, you don't have to stay. And of course, you can, it's not black or white. If you feel that she's not being open or honest, you can say so, and you can explain that this is not the kind of relationship I want. This is not what I consider to be a loving, honest relationship, and I won't stay in it. So you can explain to her. She's then free to, out of her own freedom, she can then also say the equivalent to you. I don't find that you're being open and honest, or whatever it is she feels about you. She has no right to change you, but she does have a right to leave. So in the end, of course, it's not just about leaving or staying. In the end, you end up talking about it and exploring it, and you tend only to leave if that's the last resort. But when you're talking about it and exploring these matters, it's not from a position of demanding the other or expecting the other or dictating the other to be a certain way. It's an exploration of your openness, your honesty, your vulnerability together in your relationship. So you can still explore these matters, still work through them. The conflicts that arises, the difficulties that arises, the fears that arise, without dictating to the other. The message you want to send to your companion is that you care more about truth and love than you care about her. That your first commitment in life is to truth and love and beauty. And that you won't let anyone or anything deflect you from that. If she wants to stay, it doesn't mean you're perfect at it. You don't pretend to be perfect at it, but it is your intention. It is your desire. And it is your desire that your relationship is primarily about that. About both exploring it together, sharing it together, celebrating it together. But ultimately your interest is not the relationship. It is truth and beauty and love. And that your invitation to her is to share this, explore this with you. And you expect to learn as much from her about it as she does from you. But don't compromise your this love of truth and beauty and love for anything or anyone. And if your companion shares your love of truth, then if you both have this love and truth, then you will be tremendously attractive to one another. It will be this love of truth that keeps you together, not demands, expectations.
What do you mean when you say learn as much from the other as she does from you?
There may be things in yourself, in fact there are things in all of us that are much easier for our companion, particularly our close companion, to see that than it is for us. We all have blind spots.
Sure.
And we all tend to defend our blind spots. And just as you know that there are certain things in your companion that are clear to you, that she may not be aware of, that the same is true the other way around. So in that sense, you learn from one another. You have to be open and vulnerable with each other. You have to explore those parts of yourself that you find difficult to explore. And in my experience, men are more reluctant to go there than women. That's a very broad generalization, so I'm not saying that that's always the case, but it's just a generalization.
You mean kind of just honesty with, like, deep, sincere honesty with
I mean,
feelings?
Being open to exploring one's vulnerabilities. There are perhaps other qualities that are more masculine that men may have. So it's a balance. I'm not suggesting that either party is stronger or better in the relationship, but each brings something different to the relationship. And actually, although of course, ultimately it is our shared being that is the real source of intimacy in a relationship, but actually our ability to explore these matters together creates a very deep bond of friendship between people.
See, I always find I fall into the trap of feeling that the other is suggesting I do things in different ways, maybe, which feels to me as an imposition of freedom. But I guess that's just a dance that has to be explored.
Well, it may not be an imposition on your freedom. It may be a suggestion that comes from love.
Sure, I can see that, and the line is very, very fine, but...
Well, you have to be careful not to justify. I'm not suggesting that your behavior is obnoxious, certainly not, but we have to be careful not to justify obnoxious behavior by saying, well, it's my freedom to behave like this.
I understand this completely.
So it may be that we are behaving in a certain way that is rigid, insensitive, unloving, and yet we can't see it. It's perfectly clear to our friend. Our friend is on the receiving end of this behavior all the time. So then our friend's suggestion, maybe when you see this or hear this, before you react, before you leap into a defensive reaction, maybe pause. Maybe just pause. Just put some space between the event and the reaction. Is that an imposition on your freedom? Yes, it is. You're free to react as you like. But it's a very good suggestion. It's a loving, intelligent suggestion. So, that's not really an imposition on your freedom, because actually if you heed the suggestion, it will take you to your true freedom. Because this reaction, for instance, let's say you're very easily triggered, you have an emotional reaction. Yes, it is your freedom to do so, but it's actually a very mechanical reaction. There's no freedom in that. It's just a conditioned, habitual, mechanical reaction. it has a semblance of freedom to it, but it's not really, it's not real freedom.
Yeah, that's really useful. It makes sense. Thank you. There's just one other. I'm just rewinding a fair bit just around agreements. I don't want to be too personal with this, but does marriage then just become a celebration of union and nothing more, nothing less? I mean, in this.
Well, marriage starts off as hopefully 90% celebration, 10% yoga. After a couple of years, it's more like 50% celebration, 50% yoga. After 4 or 5 more years, it's more like 80% yoga, 20% celebration. But then hopefully, if you stick at it, a few years later, the balance begins to tip again. And after several years, you begin to find it's more celebration and less yoga. But in those middle years, there's no avoiding the yoga. And the prize for undergoing the yoga in those middle years is the celebration that comes later.